This story revolves around Steve Denick. He was at his house, but he was low on money. He needed a job. He read in the newspaper that a company had opened an attraction in place of an old family restaurant that had closed 30 years ago. The attraction was called Cartoon Network's Fright, which starred characters from Cartoon Network cartoons. That place needed an employee, and Steve decided to take this job. Steve arrived and met the boss, who owned the establishment. The boss toured him the place, showed the attraction and showed the room where Steve would be staying, and then the night began. Steve would soon realize that it would not be the place of fun, but a freak show, and the boss told him that he would have to stay a week in this establishment. On this day, the caretaker of the attraction saw the boss creating more new dolls, but the caretaker told him not to, because it would be super risky, but the boss didn't listen. That was very scary for him. It looked like they were destroyed, decapitated and with bloodstains in their mouths. When the clock struck midnight, all the dolls left the place. But Steve had a flashlight with limited battery, so you could see. But when he opened the door, Steve got a super scare from Gumball, with white eyes with black backgrounds. After that, Steve starts to hear several voices. "What are you doing here? This place is too scary. Get out of here!" And it went on. "Get out of here, or it'll be too late." Steve tried to open the exit door, but couldn't, and suddenly a voice came from behind him. "Do you try to keep being nice to play with?" Steve looked back quickly to see what voice it was, who was talking to him. In the back of the room, Uncle Grandpa with green eyes, looking straight at Steve, smiled and disappeared, and Steve went to the room again. And there he found 3 mini keys, and that would be the keys to the exit door. Looks like Steve got lucky. He manages to open it, and it was the only way out for him. And you can't stop wondering how this place is so mysterious. Steve ended up locking himself in a room, and found in the drawer one with 3 Cartoon Network VCR tapes. And one of the first tapes found was a lost episode of The Amazing World of Gumball, where Gumball, an ace, and Darwin committed suicide. Steve cried for them. The second tape was from a Garfield commercial that aired on Cartoon Network in 2001, but that was a very unsettling commercial for a child, teenagers, and adults alike. The commercial starts like this. The owner of Garfield arrives asking, "Garfield, where's the furniture?" Garfield looked at the screen, scaring everyone who was watching. Afterwards, Garfield's owner arrives in the kitchen still asking, "Garfield, where's the food? And where's Odie?" And Garfield looked at him with a creepy smile. And the last tape was unknown, and Steve put it in the VCR to play. But suddenly, this happens. Steve was teleported to a room full of electronics with limited energy and security cameras that record the entire place. Cartoon Network's Fright was a place inspired by amusement park horror attractions. Steve hears the phone ringing. It was the boss, who said the following. "Hello? Hello? Steve, thank you for enjoying your work, but it seems that we'll have a couple of problems later on. Now, let's proceed with these dolls that are the attraction of the place are getting more and more active, and those VCR tapes are not the same since the Macabre Garfield commercial from 2001, but we still don't know what could be behind it. As for that ad that came up, it was when Cartoon Network aired Garfield, but it was in a strangely bizarre way, and there was a code on the screen saying 1618, which exactly doesn't know what that means. Now, Steve, I have a question for you. Did you find those VCR tapes?" And Steve replied, "Yes, boss. I found those VCR tapes guarded in a drawer in a room locked with a padlock, and I had the key with access to this room. It had 3 VCR tapes, one of which is from the lost episode of The Amazing World of Gumball, where Gumball, an ace, and Darwin ended up dying of suicide and were found dead by the police. And second was the Macabre commercial for Garfield, where he grinned at his owner with pointy teeth and screamed. But together with these 2 tapes, the third tape was unknown. and I put it in the VCR and teleported me to this room here. The boss replies, I knew. I knew that you had discovered Steve. This suspicion is alarming. I think I was wrong. This old commercial was posted by someone who hacked the Cartoon Network server showing this commercial, and because on the channel I already saw an episode of Steve Universe on, but with adult content. The thing is, this Garfield commercial was shown on Cartoon Network in Latin America, and everyone started to see the conclusion, and this case was forgotten. And I honestly never even got to talk about this commercial. Aim for them. It's kids, teenagers, and adults watching TV and don't see any of those bizarre things. And only the curious discover this? And it's always me who has to be the target? The boss said to Steve, Steve, look at those TVs from above. It was a message that said, I want you. It's no use. You agree. Get us out of here now, the boss said. To complete a task, there are 2 open doors on the side that you can close when you press the button. You have to keep an eye on, Steve, when someone approaches you. There's a key next to you, and in it has a card with a password. Thanks, boss. Steve took the key and left the room. He walked around looking for the door, through the darkness and through the noises he could hear. And suddenly, a knife that came out of nowhere hit Steve in the leg. Steve starts screaming in pain. He tries to take the sword out, and blood comes out, and he finally manages to get it out. But he couldn't walk straight until he found the door, and it was the correct key for that door. And it was a giant hallway. On one wall was written, Don't look back. Steve moves on, and the password door was there, and the card was there, and the password was 161893. Then the door opened. A black shadow appeared and Steve passed out. And when Steve woke up, the entire Cartoon Network sprite started to go up in flames, and also in pitch black since it was dark in the place. From this moment, the pull of turning into a scene from hell, and the fire spreads and Steve knows he could run from there. So Steve saw the door written, Exit, very big. It was the only thing he could get out, and some security guards outside went there to yell at him, saying he had to leave the place. Steve finds a mini key and manages to get out, and the location where Steve and the boss were is destroyed by fire and appears in the newspaper. And Steve would have done his job.